G'day team, welcome to another tiny build scale modeling video. Today we're diving into how to weather your tank using pigments, and I'll be showing you a full step-by-step process using my 1/35 scale Panther tank painted up in autumn camo. Pigments are one of my favorite ways to add depth and realism to a model. As always, I'll show you everything I do, explain why, and give you some tips along the way. If you want to see how I painted up this tank or its stowage, I have 2 videos on my channel covering this. The links will be in the description below. With that being said, let's jump into it. Before doing any weathering, we want to protect the paint job underneath. To do this, we'll give the entire tank 2 to 3 thin coats of AK Interactive Intermediate Gauzy Agent. This not only seals in your paintwork, but also creates a smooth surface for the enamel products later on. Let that dry completely before moving on. Next, we're going to apply enamel dark wash across the whole tank. We'll do a pin wash on all the fine details like the panel lines and rivets. And we'll do a sludge wash on all the packs and gear. I strongly recommend doing this before we move on to any pigments. I'll have another video coming soon going into washes in more depth, but for now, just make sure you get a nice even coat and let it settle naturally. This gives us a good foundation to work from and ties the pigments into a realistic layered finish later on. Once all the enamel wash is completely dry, we're gonna spray 2 to 3 thin coats of MO Lucky Matte Varnish over the whole tank. This will remove the shine from the enamel and give us a nice natural and flat surface to start adding pigments to. Now we'll start the fun part, pigments. Grab some MO Kursk soil and start applying it around the insides of the wheels. Don't be too neat with it, just blob it on in a natural, uneven way. Mud and dirt don't go in straight lines and don't look too perfect, so keep it rough. Don't worry too much about the tires just yet, we'll cover those later on. We'll also add this to the side armor plates, as well as the front and back of the hull and the front wheel guards. These are all areas where dirt would naturally collect and flick up during movement. Before the Kursk soil dries, grab some MO Europe Earth and start dabbing it over the same areas. This will start to mix the tones together and give a bit more color variation. Don't be afraid to go heavy. It's always easier to remove pigment later than to try and add more after sealing. Now we'll take some enamel odorless thinner and carefully touch it over those pigment areas. This acts as a binding agent, almost like glue, locking the pigments in place without disturbing the texture too much. Let this dry for 6 to 8 hours, or even better, overnight. While that's drying, we can move to the upper hull and turret. Here we'll take some MO Golan soil and gently apply it to the top surfaces. Vents, handles, bolts, hinges, hatches, and anywhere else that dust and grime would naturally collect. As a general rule, the higher up the tank you go, the less dirt and mud there should be, so keep it subtle on the upper areas. Next, lightly add a bit of Europe Earth on top of those Golan soil areas. Dirt is never just one color. By adding a bit of tonal variation, you'll make the tank look much more realistic and lived in. Just like before, we'll use enamel odorless thinner to bind these pigments together. Don't flood the area, just gently tap the thinner over the pigments and let the brush do the work. We can leave this to dry for at least 6 hours, if not overnight. Once everything's completely dry, we're going to grab a stiff brush and gently start knocking off any excess pigment that we don't want. You'll be surprised how much comes off, but don't worry, this is all part of the process. Adjust it to your liking, more clean if you want a newer look, or leave more on if you want that battle-hardened, muddy look. Now we'll finish the weathering with MO Dry Earth. Apply all over the wheels, including the tires, as well as the front and rear of the hull and the armor plates. Again, avoid painting it on perfectly. A regular application looks more natural and realistic. We'll take our enamel odorless thinner one more time and lightly blend all 3 pigment colors together. This will unify the tones and make it look like the dirt and dust naturally accumulated over time rather than being painted on in separate layers. Let that dry completely before moving on to the next step. Once that's all dry, take another look at your tank. If there are any areas that need extra blending or a bit more pigment, you can go ahead and adjust them now. Weathering is all about layering and feel. Take your time and make it look right to your eye and your reference pictures. For a nice realistic touch, we'll flick some dry earth upward using a brush. Do this from the bottom up to simulate real mud splashes and gravity. This subtle step adds a lot of realism and ties together the whole weathering job. Before we're finished, we'll pop the tank tracks back on using some super glue. If you'd like to see how I weathered these up, you can click here or use the link in the description below. And there we go, a fully weathered 1/35 scale Panther in autumn camo, brought to life with just a few pigment layers and some patience. If you enjoyed this video or learnt something new, drop a like, leave a comment and subscribe so you don't miss the next video. Until next time, happy modeling and I'll catch you in the next one.